Hello, gentlemen, and welcome to the TFE podcast, the total franchise experience where fantasy is, of course, at its finest. I was going to do the New York Yankees today, but to nobody's surprise, Nolan has not picked up his guys yet. So I am going to do the St. Louis Cardinals instead. No reason for it. Just clicked on the Cardinals and saw that they had picked their guys up and their $259 salary. So going to go with the Cards today. And I don't love the auction that the Cardinals had, but I don't think that Ben had a ton of money to play with. So he kind of filled his needs, which was bench pieces mostly, and got a few of those for cheap. $2 Eloy Jimenez, super interesting. Could he possibly get back to a shadow of his former self, and maybe return some nice value on that $2? But the guys that you got in the auction aside, I do kind of really like the lineup. It does contain 4 guys who can play first base. You're not going to find that on too many other teams, I don't think. I haven't sat and looked at everybody's roster yet. I'm doing these on the fly, really. There's not a lot of prep going on. But the thing that stuck out to me immediately about the Cardinals was 4 guys that can play first base. Maybe out of some jealousy, I only have 1 guy that can play first base, and it's Ryan O'Hearn. So to see 4 guys that can play first, and 4 guys that you could easily, should all probably be in the lineup on a day-to-day basis as well. So yeah, very interesting there. Has some nice youth with a guy like Connor Norby. I like Tolia. Jury's out on Jung Hoo Lee. I mean, he's supposed to be good. He's $9. He's signed through 27. So, he's only 26, going to be around, part of the team for a while. So yeah, some youth going on there. Shanuel, only 22, signed through 28. The Cardinals handed out a lot of longer-term contracts. There's a 28 here. Willy Adames for 28. Shanuel, Francisco Alvarez for 28. Shane Baz, Grayson, Ryan Walker gets a 2028 contract. Alek Manoah, Jake Bloss going to be making money from the TFE Cardinals for the next several years with a 28 contract. So Ben obviously liked the direction that he was going in and locked a lot of these guys up for a good long time, and then went out and got some cheap depth in the auction. Marco Luciano for $1. Luis Torrens as a backup catcher for $1. Trevor Rogers, who is this good Trevor Rogers? Is this former? Yeah, so former Marlin Trevor Rogers, if he can, again, kind of like Eloy, if he can get back to being close to what he's shown that he can be for $2, he could really end up being a nice value. He's only 27. There's time for him to show that he's somebody. I think everybody knows by now I'm not a fan of the Alek Manoah 2028 contract. Tracks, again, being very generous in slating him for 13 points a game, but only 42 innings. So I don't really know how that works exactly, like where they are getting their projections from or how they run them. You got to really like Schwellenbach for $3. There's the top end of this rotation. Schwellenbach, Grayson, Baz, and Jesus Luzardo. That's a pretty nice front 4. With some potential guys in the minors. Owen Murphy, high level prospect. Chase Hampton, high level prospect. Daniel Espino, I don't think you can call him that anymore, but if he ever gets over his injury stuff, maybe he has something left. Maybe he can, prove that he can be some of the big league pitcher that we kind of have been waiting for him to be for several years now. And Brandon Barrera, I think, had a little bit of helium at some point too in the last year or so. Overall, with these longer-term contracts, has a lot of prospects that he's hoping a few come up and maybe eventually replace some of these more expensive longer-term guys. But yeah, I don't hate for having to come in in the middle of the auction in year one, we all know the story, having to come in and take over this team in the middle of it. It seems like he's done a pretty good job of turning it into his own creation. He's got guys he wants locked up on longer term deals. He's got some nice prospects waiting in the wings. Didn't have a lot to do in the year two auction. So, this is year two is going to play out largely with how, maybe year one ended for him, with hopefully maybe some of these. He has like no hitting prospects at all. I kind of just noticed that. So, I mean, how many of these are we hoping are giving him innings this year? I don't know if there are any. Maybe Chase Hampton, maybe, but probably not Murphy, not Lesko, not Alex Clemmie. So maybe not a lot of help in 2025, but certainly you're hoping for future help if you are a TFE Cardinal fan. Quinn Priester, I don't know where I'm at on him. I guess that kind of means I'm off of him. I know that maybe the shine has worn off a little bit since he was getting a little bit of hype back when he was a Pirate, maybe an A-ball, double-A ball, but he's locked up for a couple years. So even if he could be a swingman or a multi-inning reliever, something like that for Boston, he's probably still going to be worth $5-7. Once we get into $9 and $11, I don't know, but hey, maybe he ends up needing to start. I just don't. Again, I don't know if I'm buying the Track's projection of nearly 12 points per game, but he's only throwing 31 innings. It just doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, overall, lacking the top end bats, but decent depth, some decent flexibility, and a pretty good rotation. Baz, Grayson, Luzardo, Schwellenbach. You got yourself a stew going. You add a fifth guy, a sixth guy, which he does have. That at least potentially has, and it's not a bad looking staff. Got a guy on there that should still be getting some saves in Iglesias. Rental, last year he's only signed through 25, so he does have money coming off the books. Already, just looking at way too early at next year's auction, he's got $50 coming off the books, and at the very least, just $50 and 2 pitchers coming off to kind of play with and see what he can do with. Yeah, this is an interesting team. I don't know if I think it's a play. I don't know if the bats are going to play well enough to propel this team into the playoffs. The pitching should definitely keep him hanging most weeks. Are these bats good enough? Man, maybe they could be. Maybe they could be. This is a maybe. This is a middle. I don't know what I exactly think about this team. I'm going to give him like a 6.4 Emo's Pizzas with Provel cheese, or a 6.4 Ted Drew's frozen custards for the St. Louis Cardinals. Kind of like them, but you can kind of see the path towards them having some struggles if the bats kind of really suck, if Soderstrom isn't very good, if Connor Norby turns out to not be a very good big leaguer. Willy Adames in San Francisco, I don't think you have too much to worry about there. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe 6.4 could be a little low. Could end up maybe being a little high. I don't know. That's what I'm giving him. 6.4 pints of Ted Drew's frozen custard. Maybe a playoff team, maybe not. Tough to figure out for the Cardinals. But I don't dislike them. Good job, Ben. Props to you. Hopefully somebody, there's some St. Louis cast that know what Ted Drew's is. All right. See you on the next one.